strange kind of problem because feelings are still alive on both sides. Kadir is angry because everything he has seen seems to tell him that Daphne cannot be trusted. Daphne is heartbroken because every attempt she makes to explain herself create another problem. Tolga has become more emotional, more jealous, and less willing to stand equality while Daphne chooses Kadir. Leila has also understood that the distance between Daphne and Kadir gives her an opportunity. All these threats came together before Daphne accident, and this is why the accident will probably not be used only as a dramatic shock. It can completely change the directions of the love story. The most important part of the previous story was Daphne finally reaching a point where hiding her feeling was impossible. For a long time, she tried to control everything around her. She wanted to solve problems, financial problems, work problems, and emotional problems as if all of them could be handled with careful planning. Love was the one thing that refused to follow her plans. Kadir entered her life with an energy that made her uncomfortable because he could see the emotional side she worked so hard to hide. Tolga represented another possible road. He came from a world Daphne already understood, and he could offer security, influence, and solutions. Yet Daphne hears continue moving toward the persons who created the most uncontentedly in her life. That contract has always been important, but now it's become even more important because Daphne memory problem removes many of the walls she built around herself. Before the accident, Daphne had finally admitted the trust about the photograph and about her feelings. Her confession was supposed to reach Kadir privately, but instead it becomes part of a public humiliation when Leila used it. The ceremony that moment destroyed Daphne's control over her own story. Something she wanted to stay from the hearts became entertainment for pupils watching her. Kadir was forced to hear emotional trust in the worst possible setting. Daphne was already executed by guilt, rejection, jealousy, and pressure. The accident therefore arrived after a long emotional breakdown rather than appearing from nowhere. The official episode 8 recap confirmed that Daphne admitted leaking the photograph, that Kadir misunderstood her presence at Stolga's house. Red Lilac exposed Daphne's confession video publicly, and that the story then moved toward Daphne accident. The next part should begins by showing the consequence of that accident from Kadir's point of view. Until the crash, Kadir could protect himself with anger. He could convince himself that staying away from Daphne was the correct decision. He could remember every suspicious event and use it proof that their relationships was impossible. The hospitals will remove that emotional protection. When he sees Daphne injured, the small argument will suddenly loses their importance. The photograph will not seem important. Olga House will not seem important. Leila games will not seem important. Kadir will only think about whether Daphne will open her eyes again. That fear is likely to become the moment when he finally admits to himself that his love did not disappear simply because his trust was damaged. Tolga will experience the same accident in a completely different way. For Kadir, the accident creates guilt. For Tolga, it creates anger. Tolga already believes that Kadir has hurt Daphne emotionally, and he is likely to connect the accident directly to that pain instead of seeing it as the final result of many different events. Tolga may decide that Kadir pushed Daphne to the breaking point. The least official preview directly established Tolga blaming Kadir for the accident. This gives the rivalry between the two men a new level. Until now, they have competed for Daphne heard professional influence and personal pride. After the accident, they can begin competing over who has the right to protect her. However, the story has prepared a surprising answers to that competition. Neither man will truly be able to decide what happens next because Daphne herself will wake up with a completely different understanding of her life. According to the official preview, Daphne temporarily loses part of her memory and mistakenly believed that Kadir in a husband. The doctor expected the missing memories to return a warm everyone against giving her another major emotional shock, creating the strangest situation in which Kadir has to remain close to her while the people around the protect the misunderstanding for a short period. This idea is more than a romantic comedy trick, it gives a returns a way to ask a very interesting questions. If Daphne temporarily forget the fear, arguments, secret and pride that separated her from Kadir, where does her heart naturally go? My prediction is that this will become the central theme of the coming story. Daphne's mind will have lost pieces of information, but her emotional memory will still react to Kadir. She may not remember exactly when they became close. She may not remember their breakup. She may not remember the painful scenes surrounding the confessions. Yet she will feel safe when Kadir is close. She will recognize something familiar in his presence, even if she cannot explain it. She may believe they are married because her damaged memory takes real emotional feelings and places them inside an incorrect story. In other words, the marriage itself is false, but the emotional reasons her mind accepts it may be real. Kadir will be deeply affected by this. At first, he will probably treat the situations carefully and particularly he will remind himself that Daphne is injured and confused. He will understand that taking advantage of her conditions would be wrong. He will try to create distance while still helping her, but that distance will become very difficult when Daphne behaves with the confirm of a woman who believes she is living beside the man she chose. The version of Daphne standing in front of Kadir will not be guarded. She will not constantly prepare herself for disappointment. She will not hide every soft emotion behind logic. Kadir will see the relationships they might have had if fear and misunderstanding had never entered between them. This is where the predictions can become both funny and emotional without depending on dialogue. Daphne will enter Kadir's home expecting to find traces of a shared married life. Instead, the house will obviously belongs to a man who has not been living with her. Everyone will have to quickly explain missing photographs, separated belongings, empty cupboards, and the awkward behavior of family members. Each attempts to make the false marriage believable will probably create another strange detail that needs explaining. She definitely begins intelligent even with missing memories will notice inconsistency. She may wonder why her clothes are somewhere else, why nobody has wedding photograph ready, why her family seems surprised by ordinary question, and why Tolga behaves like a man watching his future despairs. Selma will be central to this comedy because the official setup already says she resists Daphne straight at Kadir's home. Selma has strong opinion about Kadir's life and naturally wants to protect her son. She may initially seize the situations as another disaster brought into the family by Daphne. Yet, something interesting could happen during the days when Daphne believes she belongs is that house Selma will be forced to observe. Daphne without the usual competition and suspicious, Daphne will not arrive as a outsider trying to win Kadir. In her mind, she already loves him and he's already part of his life. That may allow Selma to see qualities is Daphne that she previously ignored. Daphne could help around the home without trying to impress anyone. She could worry about Kadir when he leaves. She could instinctively understand when he is upset. She could become interested in Selma worries. Those ordinary moments might slowly affect Selma more than any guard attempts to win her approval ever could. Selma may still complain constantly about the situations, but my prediction is that she will become one of the people's most emotionally affected. When Daphne memory finally returns, she will realize that the strange temporary household showed her a possible futures in which her son, as genuinely happy Kadir, will face an even harder emotional test because he knows the trust. Every moment will carry a painful limit. Daphne may behave a thought. They have a year of trust between them, while Kadir remember that only a short time ago their relationship was nearly destroyed. This difference could make him usually gentle instead of enjoying the situations. He may become more serious because he knows it can end without warning. Every time Daphne smiles at him, he will know she may soon remember why she was angry. Every peaceful moment will remind him that the real relationship is still broken. This should force Kadir to examine his own mistake. He has good reasons for being hurt, but he also reacted very quickly when jealousy entered the situation. Seeing Daphne and Tolga house was enough for him and build on entire before fully hearing her explanations. The accident will not erase what Daphne did wrong, but it can make Kadir understand that love cannot survive it. Every difficult image is accepted as proof before the trust is hard. He may begin to recognize that Daphne securely and his suspicious created the same problem from different directions. She hid things because she feared consequence. He judged quickly because he feared betrayal. That emotional realizations should continue with Kadir's finally watches of fully things about Daphne confessions. The public humiliations around the video may have prevented him from properly hearing what she was actually saying. Letters alone those can returns to him. He can understand that Daphne was not trying to manipulate him. She was admitting her own mistake and accepting that her decisions damage was what they had. Once Kadir understands that his anger will begin turning into sadness, he will see that both of them destroyed something they wanted because neither know how to protect it. Meanwhile, Daphne temporarily believes that they are married will create situations those expose Kadir's real feeling. A man who no longer create kids would simply wait for medical problem to pass. Kadir will not be able to behave that way. He will notice whether Daphne has eaten. He will remember what makes her comfortable. He will react instantly whatever she feels dizzy or confused. He will probably become overprotective and Daphne may interrupt that behavior as normal behavior from her husband. Kadir will then find themselves tried by his own kindness, because every caring actions make the imaginary marriage more believable. Tolga will see all of this from outside and become increasingly desperate. His greatest fear has always been the definite feelings for Kadir, and stronger than anything the can offers, the memory loss will make this fear impossible to ignore. Daphne will have forgotten important fact, yet she will emotionally choose Kadir. Tolga can argue that the belief is caused by the accident, but deep inside, he will know the uncomfortable trust. Her mind may be confused, but it did not randomly chooses a stranger. It chose the man she loved. My prediction is that Tolga will first try to Daphne mistake immediately. He will want to tell her that Kadir is not her husband. The doctor warning will stop him from doing it openly. They will make him feel powerless. Tolga is used to solving problems through actions. He can arrange meetings, use influence, investigate secrets, and create plans. Now he will be told that his safest things or Daphne is allow her to believe something that gives Kadir the advantage, that will test Tolga's self-control. He may then try another method. Instead of directly revealing the trust, Tolga could place familiar objects and memories around Daphne, hoping memories, something connected to her past, will return. He may show her places linked to her before Kadir. He may remind her of work, family responsibilities, or old events on the surface. This can be presented as helping her recover. Underneath his hope will be that remembering her complete lie will weaken the false marriage and bring her emotionally back toward him. The marriage is that recovering memory may do the opposite. Every memory that returns may remind Daphne how strongly she felt for Kadir. Tolga could accidentally repeat the very love story he wants to destroy. That would make his position increasingly target. He may believe facts are his strongest weapons, but the fact include Daphne choosing Kadir again and again despite every obstacle. Lela represents are different dangers because she is unlikely to respect the emotional boundaries of the situation. She has already shown that she is willing to use private information publicly. It will help her position. Daphne memory problems give Lela a powerful secret. She knows that the marriage is false, and she can see that Kadir is becoming emotionally attached to the temporary agreements. Lela may decide that waiting for Daphne memory to return naturally is too dangerous. The longer Daphne stay with Kadir, the deeper then connections become. However, I do not think Lela will immediately expose everything. That would end the useful confusions too quickly. Instead, she may begin creating small cracks. She can leave clues that make Daphne question the marriage. She can appear with knowledge about Kadir that seems too personal for an ordinary acquaintance. She can make Daphne wonder why another woman understands her spouse husband so well. This will introduce jealousy before Daphne even fully remembers. She says can felt jealous. That would be a very clever way for the story to show that emotions survive memory. Daphne may not remember Lela clearly, but she may dislike seeing her close to Kadir. She may experience the same discomfort that existed before the accident without knowing its history. Kadir could secretly find it amusing at first, but he will also recognize it as evidence that the Daphne he knows is still present beneath the confusion. The biggest turning point is that first stage could come when Daphne begins recovering her memories in fragments. It would be too simple for everything to return at once. The more dramatic approach is so to let curtains image appears without context. Daphne may remember Stolga house but not why she was there. She may remember Kadir begins angry but not to the misunderstanding that caused it. She may remember the ceremony and the embarrassment but not exactly what was shown. These fragments could make the affair that the people around her are hiding something terrible. For the first time, the false marriage could stop feeling safe. Daphne may looks at Kadir and wonders whether he has lied to her about more than one thing. This is where Kadir will face the most important decisions. He can continue following the medical advice and protect her from shock, or he can begin explaining part of the trust before she discovers them is a more painful way. My prediction is that he will choose honestly, gradually, even though it risks losing the closeness that evolved between them. That decisions will show Kadir growth. If he truly loves Daphne, he cannot build a future on a misunderstanding, even if is that misunderstanding temporarily give him everything he wanted. He must be willing to lose the imaginary marriage in order to have a chance at a real relationships, as that is why the accident is not a simply a reset button. It is a test. Before the crash, Daphne and Kadir loved each other but did not know how to trust each others. After the crash, they will experience trust without the full history of pain. When the history finally returns, the questions will be whether they can combine the of love of these peaceful days with the trust of everything that happens before. The false marriage may become more real than anyone expected. The next stage of Muhtemel ask should focus less on whether Daphne remember the trust and more what happens, what she does not remember it. This period may initially appear light and entering, but under it the comedy there is a serious emotional idea. Daphne has spent most of series refusing to surrender control. Now she wakes up in a situation where everyone knows more about her life than she does. Her first instinct will be search for stability. Kadir's becomes that stability because her damaged memory tells her in the person she trusted enough to marry. That create a strange reversal. Previously, Kadir was usually the person who disturbed Daphne carefully organized life. Now he become the person she depend on the understand that life. She may ask him about habit, places, people, and even she cannot remember. Every question will put Kadir under pressure because he must answer carefully without creating a large false history. Kadir will probably refuse to invent romantic stories about a marriage that never happened. Instead, others family members may be the one creating increasingly complicated explanations. Whenever Daphne notices something strange, this can produce some of the funniest scene of the upcoming story. One person will give one version of an event and somebody else will accidentally give another. Daphne will begins noticing that everyone become nervous whenever she asks simple questions about her wedding or married life. Yet Daphne may are misunderstanding their nervousness. Instead of suspecting that there was never a wedding, she might imagine that the relationships with Kadir and serious problems before the accident. This possibility would create a completely new types of tensions. Daphne could start wondering whether Kadir was planning to leave her, whether they had been fighting, or whether another woman was connected to the missing part of her memory. Lala's presence could then become extremely dangerous. The official preview confirmed that Lala's appearance completes the temporary situation. My prediction is that Daphne will immediately sense that Lala is not simply a normal person for Kadir past. Even without clear memory, the emotional creations will be strong. Lala can answer questions Kadir does not want to answer. She knows detail about him. She can move comfortably in spaces where Daphne feels uncertain. All of this can make Daphne believe that perhaps her spouse marriage was troubled because Kadir still had unfinished feelings toward Lala. Kadir would hate this misunderstanding because he know how ironic it is. Before the accident he suffered because he misunderstood Daphne and Tolga. Now Daphne could suffer because she misunderstands Kadir and Lala. This mirror effect can force Kadir to understand exactly how painful jealousy feels when information is incomplete. Instead of becoming angry at Daphne, he may show unusual patience. He can pressure her through behavior rather than dramatic promises. The story does not need long romantic speech. A predictions video can make this powerful through simple actions. Kadir chooses to stay close when Daphne becomes frightening. He rearranges his own routine around her recovery. He makes sure she does not feel like a burden. He protects her dignity when others people discuss the memory loss around her. These actions can slowly convince Daphne that whether happens before the accidentally this is a man who genuinely cares about her. Daphne's own feelings will also become stronger because she is no longer fighting them before the accident. Every step toward Kadir was followed by fear. She worried about Tolga, money, family pressure, social difference, secret and Kadir past. The temporary memory loss remove may of those barriers. This gives viewers a chance to see what Daphne is like when she simply allows herself to love. She may become warrior, more powerful and more open. Kadir will be surprised because this side of her exists before but appears only in short moments. He may begins to understand that much of Daphne's difficult behavior came from carrying too many responsibilities, not from a lack of feelings. That understandings could help them later when the real conflict returns. At the same time, Kadir cannot forget that Daphne is medically valuable. This small limit is essential if the story handles it carefully. Kadir will keep emotional and physical boundaries even when Daphne assumes they are married. He will not use her confusions to gain something she cannot know. Choose that retreat can become one of the strongest reasons Daphne trusts him when her memory returns. Daphne may eventually discover evidence of that restraints. Perhaps she realized that has been sleeping whenever in the house. Perhaps she noticed that she avoid except between married partner. Instantly she could interrupt. This was proof their marriage was unhappy. Later she may understand it differently. Kadir was protecting her because he knew the marriage was real. This discovery could become he knows the marriage was not real. This recovery could become crucial after the trust comes out. Daphne will understandably feels embarrassed and possibly anger when she learns everyone allowed her to leave something false. She will question whether people were laughing at her or using the conclusions. But when she learns that Kadir repeatedly protected her choice despite his own feeling, his anger toward him will weakness. The false marriage before became a strange test of Kadir's character. He received an opportunity to live beside Daphne as though has already um, but the only deserve that future is the refuse to treat the illusions as real. Tolga will match this development with growing frustrations. He can see Kadir's gaining emotional ground without deliberately trying to do so. Every day Daphne spent in Kadir's home create new memories. Even if he records the old ones, these new moments will remain. Tolga may begin understanding that waiting's quality means losing her. This is where Tolga behaviors may become more questionable. Until now, his competitions with Kadir has included jealousy and pressure, but the memory problems could tempt him to cross a line. He might decide that if Daphne is begins allowed to believe one false story when he has the right to influence what she remembers as well, he could selectively describe our past. He may emphasize moments when Kadir hurts her and minimize moments when Kadir protected her. He can remind her that she once planned to leave Istanbul. He can mention the breakup without explaining the misunderstanding around it. He may present himself as the person who was always available while Kadir caused pain. Tolga could probably is justify this and protecting Daphne. He may genuinely cares for her, so he will not see himself as a villain. That makes the predictions more interesting. Tolga may believe he is rescuing someone who cannot remember how badly she was hurt, but because she loves her, he will because fact that supports the outcome he wants. Daphne emotional instinct will resist that version. She may listen to Tolga and become confused, but she will still feel the same safety. This conflict between remember informations and present emotions can become the heart of the episode. Image Daphne learning that she once left Kadir. She could naturally ask why she did it. If the answers involve lies, photograph, jealousy, and Tolga in involvement, she may wonder how the man she currently trusts could have but been part of a much pain. Kadir will have an easy explanation because the trust does not make neither of them completely innocent. Instead of defending himself, Kadir may admit that both of that made mistake. This honesty will separate him from everyone trying to control Daphne's understanding of her past. He will not tell her that he was perfect. He will acknowledge his angles could be reasons Daphne chooses her to rest of the story from him. The temporary marriage would also affect Daphne's family. His relatives have watched her carry responsibility for years. Seeing she relaxed in Kadir's house may surprise them even if no the situation is based on a misunderstanding. They can see something real in her happiness. Mine may become particularly important because mothers often notice emotional changes before everyone else. She may recognize that Daphne is calmer beside Kadir than she has been for a long time. That does not mean she will approve of the lie continuing, but it can change the way she evaluates Kadir's The family could initially focus only on protecting Daphne's health. As the days pass, however, they may begin debating what should happen once she remembers everything. Once may believe she should move away from Kadir immediately. Others may think the accident has shown that the relationship deserves another chance. These differences opinion can create a new family comedy without repeating the main triangle. Daphne may walk into a room and everyone suddenly stop discussing her. She will know something is begin hidden but not know what. Her suspicions grow while the family become roast as pretending everything is normal. This could lead Daphne to investigate her own life. That would be very true to her personality. Memory loss may make her confused, but it should not make her passive. She is intelligent and independent. Once she realizes people are hiding something, she will begin collecting evidence. She may check old message, photograph, email, work records, or social media. The problem is that each piece will tell only part of the story. A photograph of Telga could make him appear more important than he was. A message with Kadir could show an argument without showing the recognitions around it. A photograph with Leila could create another misunderstanding. Daphne will try to rebuild her past like a legal case, but love cannot be reconstructed only from evidence. This is wrong directions from the series because it connects Daphne's professional mind with her emotional weakness. She trusts fact, now fact will confuse her because emotional contact is missing. Eventually, she may find the confessions video. This could be one of the biggest scenes in the entire story. Daphne watches herself admitting feelings she does not fully remember. She sees her own pain and realizes that the woman in the video clearly loved Kadir. Nobody can excuse Kadir of planting that evidence because Daphne created it herself. The video would become a message from her past self of her present self. Before the accident, Daphne believed she had lost Kadir because of her mistake. After the accident, she has been given another chance to stand beside him without remembering why they separated. This discovery could make Daphne question whether the accident accidentally gave them the chance they were too proud to create on their own. However, the story should not allow them to routines too easily. When memory returns, shame will appear with it. Daphne will remember every awkward thing she did while believing they were married. She will understand that Kadir knew the truth the entire time. He may uh, he may understand trust the entire time. Her first reactions may be to leave. This is where my predictions videos May Wood says Daphne became angry and Kadir follow her. I think the stronger possibility is different. Daphne may not be angry because Kadir lied. She may be angry because the false life felt more uncomfortable than the real one. Remembering everything means remembering her own mistake in public. Confessions, Tolga angers Lala, interference, and Kadir rejections. She will suddenly go from believing she is happily married to realizing she is actually separated from the man she loves. That emotional falls can be more painful than the memory loses itself. Kadir may then refuse to chase her immediately. He knows she needs time to understand what happened. Instead of forcing and other recognitions, he gives her space. This is important because both characters need to break their old patterns. Before the accident, they reacted quickly, hid information, and allowed jealousy to control them. A real second chance required different behavior. Daphne could return to her own home, where ordinary object begins bringing back to the rest of her memory. Each recovered image who was a new meanings because she has experienced Kadir from another perspective. She remembered him becoming jealous, but she also remembered him caring for her during recovery. She remembered him refusing to her explanations, but she also remembered his patience when she did not know the trust. She remembered that breakup. She did also remember feels completely natural beside him. The temporary marriage before becomes evidence that the relationships can work when both characters stop. But she also remembered his patience when she did not know the trust. She remembered the breakup, but she also remembered feeling completely natural beside him. The temporary marriage before becomes evidence that the relationships can work when both characters stop defending themselves. Daphne's final decision should not be based on memory loss. It should be made after memory return. That is the only way their love can move forward. Honesty. My prediction is that she will eventually to go back to Kadir, but no continue the pretend marriage. She will returns because she wants to see whether they can build something real. At that signal's difference will change the meanings of their entire relationship. Tolga's biggest fight will be with the trust, not with Kadir. Tolga may become the most unpredictable character after Daphne accident because he has the most to lose. Kadir and Daphne are emotionally tied to each other even when they are separated. Tolga has spent the story hoping that enough problems between them will create room from him. Sometimes those problems came naturally, sometimes outside characters made these words. Sometimes Tolga himself increased the pressure, but the accident changes the competition because it shows something Tolga cannot easily defeat. Daphne can forget events while still begins emotionally drawn to Kadir. For Tolga, this is almost cruel. He might have believed that Daphne loved Kadir because of circumstance, attractions, or a series of intense experience. The memory loss suggests something deeper, even when detail disappears. Her mind rebuilt Kadir as the closest man in her world. Tolga will fight against accepting this at the first. Anger will remain focused on Kadir. He will blame him from the emotional state. Daphne will be for the crash. From Tolga's point of Kadir rejected Daphne after she tried to explain herself. Kadir's jealousy helped create the pain that pushed Daphne into a desperate state. Tolga therefore feels normally justified keeping Kadir away, but the doctor's warning created a problem. Removing Kadir suddenly could upset Daphne. Tolga must choose between what he wants emotionally and what appears safest her for recovery. This is an excellent test of whether his love is selfless or possessive. It's Tolga truly puts Daphne first. He should tolerate Kadir's presence until she is medically stronger. If she cannot do that, his love will begin looking more like a need to win. My prediction is that he will try to do right things at first. He will control his anger because Daphne is recovering. He will remain close and watch carefully. But every small romantic moment between Daphne and Kadir will weaken that control. Tolga may walk into the house and find Daphne laughing naturally with Kadir. He may notice that she asks for Kadir when she becomes confused. He may watch her Daphne Kadir when Selma became angry. Selma become angry. None of these moments will be dramatic on their own, but together they will convince Tolga that the temporary situation is creating a real relationship This is when he begins interfering. He will probably not become an obvious villain. Muhtemel asks what's better when Tolga remain understandable. His actions should come from fear. He believes that once Daphne becomes emotionally comfortable at Kadir's supposed wife, she may choose that life even after the trust returns. Tolga therefore needs Daphne to remember the painful part. First, he could bring up the photograph scandals. He could mention that Kadir accused her instead of listening. He could remind her that she once planned to leave. Every fact is the technical truth, but the selection is manipulative because he represents the relationship through its worst moment. This strategy may intentionally suggest Daphne becomes more cautious around Kadir. She starts noticing his silence differently. She wondered whether he is protecting her or hiding guilt. Kadir may sense the change without understanding where it came from. Other jealousy can return from the opposite directions. Kadir suspects Tolga is influencing Stephanie. Tolga accused Kadir of benefiting from the false marriage, but both may believe the other is behaving unfairly. The difference is that Daphne is no longer willing to be treated like a prize. Even with incomplete memory, she may notice that people around her are deciding what she should know and who she should trust. That realizations can make her angry or both men. This is where Daphne's character should regain control. She may clearly distance herself from both Kadir and Tolga until she understands her own past, instead of following one man to tell her that Kadir was terrible and another to tell her that Tolga was interfering. She begins investigating independently. This could be a very important development because the love triangle has sometimes placed Daphne in a reactive position. The memory story gives her opportunity to say that nobody else gets to write their history for her. Tolga may not accept these reactions. His effort to separate could not Daphne from Kadir could separate her from both of them. That failures will push him toward a deeper emotional crisis. Tolga needs to ask himself why winning Daphne matters so much. It is because the geniusly believe they belong together, or because losing to Kadir hurts his pride. The series has connected romantic rivalry with professional and social competitions. Kadir represents a man Tolga cannot easily control or imitate. Every time Daphne chooses Kadir, Tolga experiences it as both personal rejections and defeat. The next story could make his country confirm his weakness. Levent may become the person who sees Tolga behaviors most clearly as the business side of the story became more unstable after the public ceremony disasters. Levent will have little patience for personal rivalry damaging professional decisions. He could warn Tolga that the company cannot become another battlefield between him and Kadir. That creates an external consequence for Tolga. His jealousy does not only affect romance, it begins affecting his position and reputation. The ceremony already became a public disaster because private emotions were exposed. The next logical development is that investors, business partners, or employees begin questioning the people involved. Daphne confessions Lala become public stunt at the conflict around the subject. Project cannot simply disappears because Daphne had an accident. Tolga may try to protect the company while also protecting Daphne. Kadir may become involved for different reasons. Their professional cooperations become necessary at exactly the moment their personal conflict is strongest. This can create a good model section for the next episode. Instead of repeating romantic argument in every scene, the story can force the two men to work on the same problems. They do not suddenly become friends, they simply recognize that the project and Daphne's reputation need protections. This temporary cooperation could reveal another side of Tolga. Kadir may realize Tolga is not pretending to care about Daphne. His feelings are real. Likewise, Tolga may finally see that Kadir is not deliberately playing with Daphne's emotions. That recognition does not end the rivalry, but it removes some of the hatred. Tolga's biggest emotional blow may arrive when Daphne's memories start turning and she remembers him clearly. For one moment, he may think this changes everything. He may hope that remembering their history means she will also remember why she once trusted him. But Daphne will remember the complete story, including the way Tolga pressured situations for his own advantage. She may thank for the supporting her while still refusing to him the answers he wants. That is the moment Tolga has avoided throughout the series, a clear choice made by Daphne will no knowledge as misunderstanding exists. He tell himself that Kadir only had an advantage because Daphne did not know the trust. When her memory returns, the excuse disappears. If she still chooses Kadir, Tolga may decide what kind of person she becomes afterward. These are two possible directions. The weaker direction would be turning him into a simple villain who tries endlessly to destroy the couple. That would create reputations. The strongest direction is to let Tolga change. He can still love Daphne, he can still struggles with jealousy, but the begin accepting that love does not create ownership. This does not need to happen in one episode, it can be slow. At first, Tolga may withdraw. He can focus on work and avoid Daphne because seeing her with Kadir is painful. His absence surprises Daphne because she has become used to him always being present. Later, a new crisis and bring them together as friend or allies rather than romantic possibilities. Tolga might even become the person who help Kadir when Lala creates another problems. This would be real characters development. Uh, how before reacting that point, I accept one final major mistake from Tolga. When he realized that memory is close to returning completely, he may decide to reveal the false Mary trust himself. He confused himself that she deserve honesty. The timings, however, will be motivated by jealousy. He tells her own created situations whenever she discovers Kadir was never discovers Kadir has to husband. The shock triggers more memories. Suddenly, Daphne remembers the breakup. She remembers the confessions. She remembers Kadir refusing to listen. She remembers Lala showing the video. She remembered driving in a pain. The entire emotional weight returned at once. Tolga expected memory to push her away from Kadir for a short time, but that Daphne also remembering something Tolga did not expect. The feelings that exist before the pain she remembered was losing Kadir hurt so much that this turns Tolga plan against him. The trust has hope would separate them. These given Daphne the complete information she need to understand herself. That is why Tolga real enemy is not Kadir. It is the trust. Every time he tries to control information, but the full trust eventually gives more freedom. Tolga will openly find pieces when he stops to manage what Daphne knows and accept what she chooses. This can also open a new romantic path for Tolga later in the season. A character who spent so long chasing someone unbelievable man eventually meet a person who refuses to participate in the case. Such a relationship would force him to behave differently, but that is a later development. For the immediate future, Tolga remains one of the strongest sources of the tensions in the story. He has emotional reasons to interfere, enough power to create concealments, and enough genius cares for Daphne to stop him from becoming completely cruel. That balance is that makes his most moves interesting. The best prediction is therefore not that Tolga simply become worse. It is that he reached the point where his current way of loving Daphne can no longer continue. The accident become his turning point just as much as it becomes Daphne and Kathir's turning point. Lala's game may finally turn Selma against her. Lala may believe Daphne accident gives her another opportunity, but I think the opposite will happen. The next story can become the beginning of Lala losing the sport she can dependent on. The previous public exposures of Daphne's private confession crossed an important line. Until that moment, jealousy and manipulations could still be hidden behind explanation. The ceremony made the consequence believable to everyone. Daphne will publicly embarrass the business event was damaged. Kadir was emotionally shocked, and the entire situation contributed to the joy surrounding Daphne before her accident. Even if Lala did not directly cause the crash, people who began connected her actions with the emotional disasters. Kadir is particular will have very little patience left. His feelings toward Lala may change for irritations to complete destruct. He will realize that she is willing to use private pain as a weapon. This destroy may possibility they can continue treating her interference as harmless jealousy. Lala may respond defensively. She can argue that Daphne created the confession and that she simply revealed the trust. But that explanation misses the important point. The issue is not whether the video was real. The issue is why Lala chose to expose it publicly. Selma may intentionally hesitate to command Lala because of their previous connections, but watching Kadir is the hospitals and seeing how frightening he is can change her priorities. A mother who sees her son suffering may stop caring about which woman she personally prefers. Selma will realize that Kadir loves Daphne. That realization may have been obvious to everyone else, but accepting it is different. When Daphne later enters Kadir's house believing she is wife, Selma will be forced into a situation she would never have chosen. The official setup says this creates resistance and tensions, yet living through that situation could slowly changes her. At first, Selma may treat every small mistake, but Daphne has proved that she does not belongs there. Daphne may misunderstanding the hostility and think she has always had a difficult relationships with her mother-in-law. That misunderstanding can create geniusly funny moment because Daphne will try to repair a family relationships that never actually exist. He may become extra polite, offer help, or search for a way to please Salma. Salma knows the entire situation is false, so she has no idea how to react. Over time, the performance becomes real. Daphne begins. She begins accepting Daphne to be around when Layla appears. Selma may differently notice how different atmospheres become. Instead of seeing Layla at the familiar safe joy, she starts seeing the tension she brings into Kadir's life. Layla will recognize this change quickly and panic. She expected Layla to help push defense away. Now Selma may try to disturb Daphne during recovery. That will feel like betrayal from Laila's perspective. Her presence would be a reveal more information about the past. She may tell Daphne that she and Kadir were once married, are deeply connected. Kadir and experience immediately security. Daphne she does not remember as of this. This is another chance for the story is explore emotions instincts. Daphne does not need memory to understand that Layla wants Kadir back. The two women can enter a quiet competition, but it should not become repetitive. Daphne does not need to fight. Layla is some away as before. Instead, she was observe Kadir. She wants to know whether his behavior changes when Layla is present. Kadir reactions become more important that anything Layla says. If Kadir clearly and anything it Kadir's clearly established distance, Daphne begins trusted him more. That teaches both Daphne and Kadir something important and about jealousy. They should come from love, not from not trying to control persons around them. Layla may become increasingly frustrated because her usual methods stop working. Public embarrassment failed. Selma sports weaker. Kadir become colder. Daphne remains emotionally connected to him. Tolga has his own agenda and will not necessarily cooperate with Layla. For the first time, Layla is isolated. This is when she makes has largest mistake. She could reveal the trust about the doctor's belief. Her intentions would be destroy the closeness immediately. The shock might indeed separated Daphne from Kadir temporarily, but its sudden memory returns causes Daphne emotional or medical distracted. Kadir and Selma will blame Layla. They finally break the remaining connections. Layla and family. Selma could become the person who tells to stay away. The reveals would be satisfying because Layla spent so much effort trying to use Selma against him. The same person she considers the strongest ally became the one closing the door. However, I do think Layla should disappear immediately. Her characters can remain useful after losing Kadir because she knows details about the family and business world. She may shift from romantic interference to reject if she believes Daphne look both Kadir and Salma away from her. She may look from another area she was can trust them. The business project is the obvious target. Layla knows this is the public ceremony already created a reputation problem. She can leak another piece of information, approach someone connected to the company, or create suspicious about decisions before the accident. This would connect romantic consequence with the professional plot. Daphne then she are reasons to control Lala that is not simply about Kadir. As Daphne memory returns, she can use the legal skills to investigate what happened. This is where the Sean's can refers to strong professionals women introduced as the beginning. The memory loss storyline should not reduce Daphne permanently to someone protected by two men. Once she recovers, she should take control of the crisis herself. Daphne could realize that Lala public stunt created legal or commercial consequence instead of screaming or entering an other's jealous confrontations. Daphne responds intentionality. She follows evidence. She protects the company. She exposes manipulations. Kadir supports her rather than trying to solve everything for her. That dramatics would show progress in her relationships earlier. Both characters frequently acted independently and created misunderstanding. Now they begin first questions at partners. Selma watches this and understands why Kadir loves Daphne. Not because Daphne is perfect, not because they never fight, but because when they finally trust each other, they become strongest together. This may also lead Selma to apologize indirectly to Judge Daphne. A direct emotional apology might be too much hidden for the characters. A better approach would be showing approval through action. She defends Daphne when another person citizens her. She includes Daphne in a family decisions. She gives her something meaningful, or she simply stops trying to decide Kadir's romantic futures. Small changes can be more powerful than a complete personality reversal. The strange fake marriage they then leave a permanent effect on the household. When Daphne moves back to her own becomes own after recovering, Selma may expectedly notice the silence. She complains that everything is finally peaceful but keeps looking toward the door. Kadir noticed that gives the audience a light moment while also showing how much change. Later, when Kadir and Daphne geniusly move toward marriage, Selma's reactions can become one of the most rewarding payoff. She will remember the days when everyone was pretending. The fake daughters-in-law eventually become the real ones, but the series should not rush there. First, Daphne and Kadir need to prove that their recognition is not simply a result of the accident. They need to rebuild trust when all promises are present. Lala attack and ironically help them do that something because every new problems require honesty. If Lala tries to create another misunderstanding, Kadir tell Daphne immediately. If someone contacts Daphne with information about Kadir, she asks him before believing the worst. Even each time they refuse to repeat their old mistakes, Lala loses power. That is the best way to defeat her, not through a dramatic victory, through emotional growth. Lala seems work because Daphne and Kadir already had weakness in their trust. When those weaknesses are repaired, the same trick no longer work. This idea can carry the story for several episodes. At first, Lala still success unconsciously. Then she begins to notice that Daphne and Kadir compare information. Her secrets are exposed faster. Her attempt to create jealousy became obvious. She became increasingly desperate. Eventually, she realized that she did not lose because Daphne was more clever. She lost because Kadir finally made a clear choice. That is the trust Leila does not want to face. Daphne memory returns will create a bigger crisis than the accident. Many viewers may expect the accident itself to be the biggest dramatic moment, but my prediction is that the real emotional explosions will happen when Daphne remembers everything. Temporary memory loss creates an unusual kind of happiness. Daphne can live beside Kadir without carrying the full weight of the past. Everyone around her knows that this peaceful period can end ending. Kadir's knows, Tolga's knows, Selma's knows, Laila's knows. Daphne is the person who does not. That make every moment slightly tragic. The writers can build suspense by showing small sign of memory returning, a road, a song, a photograph, or a familiar locations can trigger flashes. At first, these memories may be harmless. Daphne remembers as a childhood details. She remembers something from work. She recognizes a place. Everything falls relieved because her recovery appears to be going well. Then the romantic memories begins. Certain locations remind her of Kadir. She remembers an argument, but his happens. She remember Tolga standing beside her during a difficult moment. She remember Lala looking at her on his hostility. These pieces this world from a complete story so that they create fears. Daphne may begin wondering whether the people around her have hidden the trust because they have the protection themselves rather than protecting her. This is where the trust becomes more important than romantic. Kadir need to tell enough trust to prevent a complete betrayal later. If he honors until she discovers everything alone, she will feel then even the peaceful days in his home, even and others' manipulations. My prediction is that Kadir eventually decide to her they are not actually married. They may do this before Tolga or Laila can use the information against him. This is a key moment because Kadir knowledgeably give the advantage created by Daphne confusions. Daphne will be shocked. She will look around the house and realize that every ordinary moment she accepts a part of married life. House and realize every ordinary moment she accepts a part of married life. What life built around a misunderstanding. Her first emotions will probably be embarrassment, then anger, then fear. She will ask herself why her mind closed Kadir. Kadir cannot answer that for her. She only fact explain what happens. This is when the confusions video become important again. Daphne eventually understand that before the accident important again. But Daphne eventually understand that therefore he accident she had already admitted long him the fake marriage did not create the love. If exposed our love, she had already tried to confess that discovery make her anger harder to maintain. Still, she will leave the house. She needs physical distance to rebuild her identity when she returns home. Will he return home? The contracts will be painful. The house is familiar, but the emotion confirmed she experienced with Kadir is missing. She may intensely believe this is good. She was normal life back, yet normal life no longer feels normal. Yet that show how much she changed even during a short period at work. The situations will also be uncomfortable. People know about the pupils public confess news of the accident may have increased actions. Daphne has to return not only as a woman receiving from injury but as a professional whose private feeling becomes public. This can become a strong storyline about dignity. Daphne refuses to hide. Instead of despairing because she is embarrassed, she goes to work. She expects responsibility for the photograph situations. She refuses to let Lala public attack Daphne her. Kadir sees this strength and understandings again why he fell in love with her. Importantly, he does not rush to rescue her. He lets Daphne handle the professional crisis herself while remaining available when she asks for supporting. This is another sign of growth. Tolga may also behave differently after seeing Daphne's determination. He realizes she does not need him fighting Kadir on her behalf. Daphne memory continued returning will one triangle trigger bring back the accident. These scenes should be emotionally intense rather than physically dramatic. She remembered reviving while devastated. She remembered the public humiliations. She remembered believing Kadir and rejected her completely. She remembered her fear immediately before the crash. For a short time, she may blame Kadir again because all the pain returns at once. But later, she also recognized that no science person caused everything. The situation was created by many bad decisions. Daphne leaked the photograph. Kadir refused to listen. Tolga increased rivalry. Leila weapons private information. Everyone contributed to the pressure. This understanding is important because otherwise the recognition becomes too simple. Daphne needs to forgive herself as well as Kadir. Her guilt has been one of the visible forces control her beliefs. She repeatedly tried to repair problem by hiding more information which only created one more damage. After the accident, she can finally decide that the hiding is no longer acceptable. This would lead to beautiful new rules between Daphne and Kadir. Whatever happens, they tell each other first. This show does not need the characters to announce that is dialogues for our predictions, narrations. Their actions can establish it. Kadir learns some things about Tolga and immediately tells Daphne. Daphne receives a message from Lala and knows Kadir. A family members ask one of them to hide something and they refuse. Slowly, the audience sees that the relationship has changed. How this is how the series can avoid repetitions instead of creating another cycle of secret misunderstanding, breakup, and recognitions. Futures drama can come from outside problems that they face together. The business's world can become more important. Family conflict can depend. Tolga can begin a new personal journey. Lala can attempt revenge. Malice, Salam, and Siyuz can devote their own romantic choice. But Daphne and Kadir no longer need to separate every time somebody creates suspicious. This story can move from falling in love to learn how to remaining in love. This is a much stronger second phase. A major prediction for the episode after the memory recovery is that Kadir will begin seriously considering marriage. The false marriage affected him more deeply than he expected. For the short period he experienced Daphne as part of his everyday life. He saw as a breakfast, He worried about her recovery. He watches her instance with his family. He saw what he house fed like but the inside it. After she leaves, he realized he does not want the life to remain imaginary, but proposing immediately would be a mistake. Kadir has to prove that he is not simply reacting emotionally to the accident. Daphne also needs time, therefore, the story may build toward a proposal slowly. The first step could be Kadir giving Daphne some things connected to the fake marriage days. No an engagement rings yet, but a small object that reminds them from a strange period when they learn how naturally they could live together. Daphne keeps it. That becomes a quite a sign that she has not rejected the future. Tolga noticed the relationships becoming more serious and experienced a final wave of jealousy. This time, however, he chooses differently. Instead of interfering, he steps away. That can be his first real act of acceptance. The challenge will not means he no longer loved, but Daphne means she has finally respect her decisions. This opens the door for the Tolga to become a more balanced character. Lala, on the other hand, may refuse, accept, and become more dangerous. She sees Tolga withdrawing and understanding she is now fighting alone. Her next move may target the business rather than romance. This brings the series into a new type of conflict. Imagine Lala finding evidence connected to the photograph scandals or the project and presenting it is the someone who can seriously damage Daphne's career. Kadir immediately wants to protect Daphne. Old Kadir might attack the problems without telling her. New Kadir tells her first. Daphne then uses her legal experience to create a strategy. Together, they discover that Leila has misunderstood one important detail. They receive the pressure for the first time. Leila sees Daphne and Kadir functioning as one team. This is when she truly understands that separating them she has much harder. The side characters can also reflect the main themes. Malice, Salem, and Hughes have been caught in their own jealousy problems. Their storyline can provide a lighter version of the same questions whether people can communicate clearly before pride create unnecessary damage. Instead of leaving those characters disconnected from the main plot, the writers can use them as a mirror. Daphne matches their confusion and recognizes her old behavior. Kadir watches somebody becomes jealousy without evidence and recognizes himself. The main couple then gives evidence advice that they themselves failed to follow earlier. This creates comedy and characters growth. At the same time, family pressure will also return once Daphne is healthy. During the medical crisis, everyone focused on recovery. After they again have opinions about her romantic futures. Uh, Some relatives may believe Kadir is too much trouble. Others may have changed their minds after watching him care for Daphne. Daphne now reacts differently. She listens but does not allow the family to make the decision. This is not another major step for her. At the beginning to the series, she carried family expectations so heavily that they shaped me of her choice, almost losing everything. She understands that living only to keep everyone else comfortable is possible. She will begin choosing what makes sense for her own life. That includes Kadir. It also includes her career. My prediction is that Daphne may receive a new professional opportunity after the accident crisis. It could involve another office, another company, or even a chance to move. Earlier, she might have viewed living as an escape for emotional problem. Now the offers becomes a real test. Can her relationships with Kadir survive when both people make independent career choices? The obvious dramatic answers would be and others break up. The stronger answers is that they discuss it openly. Kadir may be afraid she will leave but refuses to stop her. Daphne realized that his willingness to her chooses mistake her trust his more. She may still accept the opportunity is some from without ending the relationship. This would show that love is no longer that love is begins represented as a choice between romance and independence. Daphne can have both. That would complete the growth that begins with the memory lose storyline. She temporarily lost her past, but when she gets it back, she understands her futures more clearly. Long term predictions from a possible love to a chosen love. The title Muhtemel Ask can be understood as a love that might happen, a possible love, some things that remain uncurtained until two people decide what to do with it. The strongest long term direction for the series is therefore to gradually change Daphne and Kadir relationships from a possibility into a choice. The early story depends on uncertainty. Daphne had two men around her. Kadir carried complications from his past. Tolga offers and other futures. Family pressure affected decisions. Secret created problems. Nobody could be certain whether the attractions between Daphne and Kadir would survive. The accident changes that Daphne makes believing Kadir is her husband. The series symbolically shows the possible futures before the characters are ready for it. They receive a preview of a life together. Then that preview is taken away when memory returns. Afterward, they have to decide whether they want to build the real version. This is why I do not think the memory story should end with a simple romantic scenes and then be forgotten. Its convenience should shape the test of the seasons. Kadir becomes less afraid of commitment because of he has already seen Daphne inside his everyday life. Daphne becomes less afraid of losing independence because living beside Kadir did not erase who she was. Selma becomes less resistant because she has seen them functioning together. Stolga begins understanding that she's feelings cannot force a different choice. Leila realized that the emotional connection survived when Daphne could not remember its history. Everyone changes because of those strange few days. The next major phase will probably begin with Daphne and Kadir attempting a normal relationships. This sounds simple, but for them it will feel almost unfamiliar. Until now, their love has existed mostly during crises. They meet because something goes wrong. They become close while solving problems. They separate after misunderstandings. They reunite during emergencies. A stable relationships creates a new challenge. What happens when there is no immediate disasters? They have to learn each other's ordinary habits This can create fresh romantic comedy without repeating the early plot. Daphne discovered things about Kadir that anyone her. Kadir discovered how completely Daphne organized part of her life. They disagree about time, work, family boundaries, and personal space. These are not reasons for separations, they are reasons to learn compromise for the first time. The audience sees them behaving like a real couples rather than two people constantly moving toward and away from each other's. Selma will still interfere because changing her opinion of Daphne does not mean changing her personality. Now her interference can become more comedic. She may offer evidence nobody requested. She may behave through the temporary fake message. Marriage gave her authority over future's weddings plan. Daphne survived by the sudden changes from resistance to involvement. Kadir becomes trapped between them. This is a much fresher usage of Selma than simply making her another enemy of the romance. Mind and Daphne family can create the other side of that pressure. When both families realize the relationship is serious, everyone starts imagining the future differently. The couple who spent so long trying to get together suddenly discover that begins together brings a new collection of problems. This prepared the story naturally for eventual engagement, but before that, I expect a major internal crisis. The series needs takes that does not depend on another romantic misunderstanding. The retired business storyline provide that opportunity. The public ceremony and photograph scandals may have damaged relationships around the project. Someone can use the instability to gain control, remove a partner, cancel an agreement, or create legal troubles. Definitely, professional skill becomes essential. Tolga is also connected to this world, meaning all three main characters are forced into the same conflict for reasons unrelatable to romance. This can become Tolga redemption's arc. Instead of trying to defeat Kadir, he worked with Daphne and Kadir against a common threat. At first, cooperation is uncomfortable. Kadir does not fully trust him. Tolga does not enjoy watching the couples together. Daphne refuses to manage their egos, but the external danger required maturity. Over time, the two men devolve resultant respect. Tolga sees Kadir taking Daphne professionals' opinion seriously. Kadir sees Tolga defending Daphne reputations without demanding anything romantic in returns. The relationship changes. They may have never become close friends, but they stop behaving on through every meeting much became a contact. That development would improve the entire series because it allows Tolga to remain important without repeating the triangle how for hours. Lala could join the opposing side of the business conflict, either intentionally or because somebody uses her anger. She believes she has found a way to hurt Daphne. Instead, she Daphne connected to people with larger ambitions. Eventually, she realized she is being used. This gives Lala a choice. She can continue because revenge matters more than everything else, or she can reveal what she knows and prevent a larger disasters. I predict the writers may eventually give her a partial redemption. rather than a complete punishment. She has acted badly, but much of that behavior comes from refusing to accept that her old relationship is over. A powerful ending of her arc would be helping Kadir once without accepting him to return. That would prove she has finally separated love from possession. The central couples can then face on final emotional test before engagement. A secret from Kadir's past may emerge. The obvious all patterns would be for Kadir to hide it because he feared losing Daphne. This time he does the opposite. He tells her immediately. Daphne is hurt by whatever the information is, but she noticed the difference. He trusts her with her trust before somebody else could weapons it. That singles actions prove their relationships has changes. Daphne also responds differently. Instead of leaving immediately, she asks questions. She separates the past actions from the present person. She decides based on complete information. The crisis will hurt, so drama remains, but the characters no longer behave as though they learn nothing from previous episode. This is an essential for a long running romantic series. The audience should feel progress. Ask surviving that final trust test. Kadir begins preparing our real proposals. The interesting twist is that he may deliberately avoid creating an enormous public event. Their most painful romantic confessions becomes public without Daphne permissions. A private proposal therefore has greater meaning. Kadir chooses a place connected to the temporary marriage period or one of their earliest honest memories. Daphne intensely does not understand what is happened. Then he realized why she locations matter. The man she once mistakenly believed her husband is now asking whether she actually wants that future. The emotional power comes from choice. During the memory loss, Daphne could not logically do the situations. Now she says through a clear decisions made with all memories, all problems, all trust presents. This is how the fake marriage storyline should ultimately pay off. The engagement then does a complete different comic phase. Both families both become involved. Selma and mine may disagree about nearly everything. Tolga tries to behave normally while everyone watches him from sign of jealousy. Laila may despairs for a period or returns with a claimer attitude. Salem may others younger characters create problems around celebrations and preparations. Daphne tries to keep everything simple, but simplicity becomes impossible. Kadir begins wondering whether surviving enemies and business crisis was earlier than planning a wedding. Yet underneath the comedy there will be emotional stability. The audience no longer need to wonder whether Daphne and Kadir love each other. The questions become whether they are protect that love while everyone around them create noise. That is much more mature stage of the story. And other important long-term predictions concerns Daphne herself. Her entire journey should not end with marriage. She began as a capable man carrying enormous responsibility. Loves reveal um, or take great control of work. Career sport this without treating her ambition as a threat. This matters because Daphne must choose marriage as an addition to her life, not as an escape from it. Kadir also needs a personal journey beyond Daphne. His quick temper and jealousy have repeatedly caused problems. Loving Daphne will not magically remove those qualities. He must learn when to react and when to listen. Future episode can test him with situations these resemble or misunderstanding. Perhaps is Daphne meeting Stolga privately for work for a moment. His old jealousy appeared. The audience expect another argument. Instead, Kadir remembers what happens before the accident and asks Daphne directly. There is a simple explanation: the crisis and before it grows. The small sense would show more characters development. The another dramatic separation. Similar Daphne may see Leila near Kadir again. Instead of imagining the war, she trusts the relationship. Thus, a very situation that once destroyed them become proof of how far they have come. This also makes future betrayal more meaningful if the writer ever chooses that direction. Once trust has truly been built, breaking it would be carry real weight. Tolga future deserves its own independent story. After finally expecting that Daphne choice, he may become emotionally closed for a while. He tells himself that only creates weakness. This then someone enters his life who is completely different from Daphne. She does not immediately admire him. She challenges his habit of controlling situations. She has her own goals and refuses to become part of his competitions with Kadir. Tolga intentionally finds her frustrating. Gradually, the relationship teaches him what mature love feels like. This would give the audience a reason to support him instead of simply waiting for his next attempt to separate the main couple. It solve proves the losing Daphne was not the end of his story. Sometimes losing one possible future creates space for another. This idea fit the themes of Muhtemel ask very well when not every possible love become the final love. Some possibility teach characters what they actually need. Leila could receive a similar lessons. Her attachment to Kadir may be connected to memory and history more than present compatibility. Once she finally accepts this, she can begin building an identity outside that old relationship. If the series wants to freedom her, it should not simply give her another maid immediately. First, she needs to understand herself without Kadir. Only then would a new romance feel meaningful. The final large prediction is about Daphne accident itself. There may be one detail from the crash that has not yet been fully understood. Romantic dramas often use an accident to trigger emotion change, but the accident can later reveal another later. Perhaps Daphne was distracted by more than the argument. Perhaps somebody corrected her. Perhaps some things connected to the business crisis happened just before she lost control. If the writers wants to move from romantic comedy before toward stronger drama later in the season, that under unanswered details could become important. Daphne could remember some things from the moment before the crash that nobody else know. At first, she thinks it is only a confused memory. Then she finds evidence This discovery contrasts the accident to a large plot involving the company. Kadir wants to protect her. Tolga has information from the business side. Daphne leads the investigations because the missing memory belongs to her. The three characters whose once fought more romance now work together to solve a serious problems. What would be an effective would be export the world of series. Eventually the thread is exposed the business uh, and Daphne finally feels that an accident no longer control her life. The place where she once lost memory become part of her past rather than her identity. The emotional closing of these long predictions, returning of them. At the beginnings of the next story, Daphne believes he is her husband because her mind has part of his reality. At the end of the story, beside him, wrong every reality she knows, beside him, knowledge every reality. She knows his fault. She remembered then roast argument. She remembers Tolga roles. She remembers Lela. She remembers the public humiliations. She remembers the accident. She remembers her past marriage life. After remembering all of it and still chooses him, that is far more powerful than love created by forgetting. It is love created by remembering and deciding. Anyone Kadir journey work in the opposite directions. He begins to the next story carrying every painful memory while Daphne carries almost none. He is forced to care for her while knowing that the peaceful life she imagining does not exist. For a short time she lives inside the future he wants but cannot claim. That teaches him patience. When Daphne finally chooses him freely, he understands the value of that choice because the once experienced a version that was not fully real. Tolga learns that love cannot be won through competition. Selma learns that protecting her son does not mean controlling his heart. Lara learned that history does not guarantee a future. Daphne learns that independence does not require emotional isolation. Kadir learns that trust cannot survive without listening. All of these lessons can grow naturally from the latest accident storyline without repeating the exact same conflict. The next episode should therefore not be viewed only as a funny story about Daphne mistake believing she is married. The next episode, that misunderstanding is only the surface. Underneath is the most important question the series he asked so far. All the agreements, secrets, jealousy, and pressure despairs for a short time. Will Daphne and Kadir naturally become happy together? My predictions become is that the answers will be yes. But the series will then ask then harder questions. Can they remain happy after everything comes back? This is where the real story begins. Daphne will recover. Them her memories will return. The pretending memory will end. Tolga will make together attempt to change the situations. Lala will create another complication. Selma will resist before slowly changes. The business problem will return. Family pressure will return. Every dad once made the relationships difficult will still exist. The difference will be Daphne and Kadir themselves. Then we'll see another possibility for a short period. They experience what their life would like without constant fear. Once they have seen that possibility, neither of them will be able to completely forget it. Even the Daphne remembers then the marriage was false. The happiness she experienced inside it will be real. Even when Kadir remembered, then she was only playing a role to protect recovery. The feelings of having her beside him will be repaired. Real, those real emotions will pull them back toward each other. The final recognition should therefore happen. Quality there is no need for another enormous public confession. There is no need for another dramatic crowd. Their most meaningful moment can happen when they finally sit together without Olga, without Lala, without family pressure, without hospitals, without a ceremony, and without anybody telling them what their relationship should be. Daphne understands that she spent so much time waiting for certainty before allowing herself to love. Kadir understands that she spent of much time demanding trust while reacting from jealousy. They cannot promise that they will never to be another problem. They can only decide that the next problem will not be handled like the previous ones. That becomes their real beginnings. Um, that love was once only possible becomes chosen, and from the Muhtemel ask enters a completely new stage where an audience she no longer is waiting to whether without Daphne and Kadir will fall in love. Instead, everything will be watching to discovers what they final build love now. The build of them are finally ready to stop running from it. The accident changes everything. Mehmatul asks now enters one of the most important turning point of the story because Daphne accident changes the meaningful of almost everything that happened before it. Until this moment, the main tensions was built around love, jealousy, misunderstanding, family pressure, private secret, and the growing distance between Daphne and Kadir. Both of them had strong feelings, but neither or was able to protect those feelings properly. Every time to move closer and other problems appeared. Sometimes the problems came from another person, sometimes it from fears, and sometimes it comes from their own decisions. The accident now create a completely different situation because all these old arguments suddenly look smaller um, when compared with the possibility of losing someone forever. Kadir may have been angry before the accident, but once Daphne is hurt, anger will no longer be the strongest feeling inside him. Fear will take its place, and that fear will force him to understand how deeply Daphne has entered his life. The previous part of the story was especially important because Daphne had finally reached the point where she could no longer hide her true feelings. For a long time, she tries to deal with every problem by thinking carefully and keeping control. She believed that if she managed every detail, then she could protect herself and the people around her. This approach may work in professional life, but love is different. Love does not always follow logic. Kadir made Daphne follow logic because the real emotional part of the her preferred to hide. He saw the fear, her stubbornness, her soft side, and the illegal lines behind her strength. This is one reason why the feelings for him became so strong was not simply an other's possible partners. He became the person uh, who forced her to face a side of herself what she had spent a long time ignoring. Tolga, on the other hand, representing something different. He represented a past that seems earlier to understand. He had power, confidence, and the ability to solve problems. Using influence and planning from the outside, the might appears to be a more comfortable choice for Daphne because his world is earlier to her read. Yet emotional comfort is not always the same as emotional trust. Daphne repeatedly found herself pulled toward Kadir even when he knows being close to him would her life more complicated. This difference between what appears safe and what feels real is one of the strongest parts of the story. The accident now makes that difference impossible to ignore because temporary memory problems may remove many of the fear these ones control her decisions. Before the accident, Daphne has already become trapped by the result of her own choices. The photograph issues damage trust. Her attempt to fix the situation came too late or were misunderstood. She was under pressure because she wanted to explain herself, but every explanation seemed to create another problem. Kadir was no longer listens when an opens mind because um, he has already been hurt. Tolga was becoming more involved because he believed Daphne seemed someone who would stand beside her. Leila was watching everything with her own hope and jealousy. None of those pupils were thinking calmly anything. Every decision was begins made under emotional pressure, and that is exactly what the final public humiliations had such a strong effect and Daphne confessions was posed to the personal. She wanted Kadir to understand what happened and why. She wanted him to understand that her feelings were real even if her actions her created damage. However, when trust confessions became public, the meaning changes. A private emotional trust was turned into something that others people could watch and judge. Daphne was no longer simply trying to repair a relationship. She was suddenly standing in the middle of the situations where her mistakes and her emotions were visible to everyone. For someone like Daphne, who values control and dignity, this would be extremely painful. She could survive an argument with Kadir, she could survive Tolga jealousy, she could survive Leila hostility. What became harder was feelings. Then her private heart had been placed in front of a choice. That is why the accident should not be seen as event that appears without preparation. Emotionally, damage has already reached a breaking point. She felt rejected by Kadir, trapped by Tolga involvement, attacked by Lala actions, embarrassed by the public confession, and tried for constantly trying to explain herself. Her mind was carrying too many problems at the same time. The accident therefore became a physical event that follows a long emotional collapse. This makes the next part of the stay more powerful because the pupils around Daphne will have to ask themselves how they helped created the pressure that surrounded her. Nobody alone may be responsible, but almost everyone played some part in the environment that pushed her towards such a separated moment. Kadir is likely to feel this guilt more strongly than anyone else. Before the accident, he could tell himself that walking away from Daphne was the right decision. He could remember the photograph, think about Tolga, remember the secret, and use all of these things to protect himself from getting hurt again. He could say that trust had been damaged and therefore distance was necessary. However, once Daphne is laying in a hospital's bed, his carefully built emotional walls will collapse. He will no longer think first about whether she told him everything. He will think about whether she is going to wake up. He will no longer care about who was standing because um, beside at a certain moment he will only cares about whether he gets another chance to see her eyes open. The hospital period may become the first time Kadir that truly understand the difference between being angry with someone and begins able to live without them. Until the accident, he may have confused these two ideas. He believed that because he was angry enough to walk away, he could continue his life without Daphne. The accident will show him that these are not the same things. Anger can be temporary, love can remain underneath it. When the possibility of permanent loss appears, the trust becomes much clearer. Kadir man suddenly remembers Daphne, including moments that seems unimportant at the time. A short smile, a small argument, a look she gave him, a moment when she trusted him, or even a moment when she annoyed him may become previous because precious. He is frightening that may be never be another once. The emotional power of these situations can become even strongest is Kadir arrived at the hospital still crying, the last argument in the mind. He may remember expressions, the final expressions on Daphne's face. Everyone still carrying the last argument in his mind. He may remember the final expressions on Daphne's face before everything was wrong. He may remember that she wanted to explain and that he was to hurt her properly. He does not mean Kadir was wrong to feel betrayal. His feelings were real. However, guilt does not always follow simple logic. A person can understand that had been reasons to an angry and still wished he had behaved differently. Kadir may begin thinking that if he had waited one more minute, listens more carefully, or chosen different words, perhaps Daphne would not have left it such a emotional conditions. That guilt could him stay close to her even when the people around him are angry. Tolga may confront him and blame him directly. Selma may worry that Kadir is becoming too involved again. Leila may try to remind him of everything Daphne did wrong. None of that will matters much will Daphne is unconscious for the first time in a long while. Kadir's feelings will become simple. He does not need to decide whether he should forgive Daphne. He only needs her to survive. That simple desires can strip away all of the confusions that was being controlled him. Tolga will experience the same accident very differently. He is also frightening her Daphne, but his fears can Daphne quickly turns into anger. Tolga has already seized Daphne has already someone who repeatedly hurts Daphne through jealousy and emotional instability. After the accident, he may decide that Kadir has finally gone too far. It Tolga means Daphne tried to explain herself, was rejected, suffered public humiliations, and became involved in the accident while emotionally destroyed. Tolga may therefore feel that keeping Kadir away is not a romantic decision but a form of protection. He can conceive himself that he is defending Daphne from the persons who caused her the deepest pain. This creates a strangest rivalry because the argument is no longer simply about which man Daphne loves. Now both men can claim they are protecting her. Kadir knows that Daphne needs emotional peace. Tolga believes Kadir is the reason she lost that peace. Kadir may think Tolga keep taking advantage of difficult situations to move closer. Tolga may think Kadir hurts Daphne and tells her returns whenever he became afraid of losing her. Neither one will see the full pictures because all of these still looking through jealousy. This can produce a very tense hospital atmosphere. Everywhere small decisions become another source of conflict. However, Daphne waking up changes the fight in a way neither man expect. Instead of waking up and continuing the same argument, she may wake up missing piece of memory. She may remember some people's forget each other's details and misunderstanding the current situation. The biggest surprises come when she believes Kadir is her husband. This completely changes the balance because Kadir suddenly becomes the person Daphne trusts most, not because he has conceived but her because her confused mind her placed in his dead role. Tolga cannot easily fight against that without rising another emotional shock for Daphne. This development is interesting because Daphne's mind may be confused while her emotional memory remains stronger than her factual memory. She may not remember exactly when she first fell for Kadir. She may not remember the argument, the photograph, the public confessions, or the breakup. Yet when she Kadir, something inside her feels familiar and safe. Her brain then tries to explain that strong emotional connections by creating the idea that he must be her husband. The marriage is not real, but the feelings underneath the misunderstanding is very real. This is can make the upcoming story more meaningful than a simple memory less comedy. Kadir may probably be completely shocked when Daphne looks at him. If are already married at first, he may think she is joking or simply confused for a few seconds. Once the doctor explains the condition, the situation becomes much more serious. Kadir understands immediately that he cannot react carelessly. If he suddenly tells Daphne everything in a harsh way, she may become frightening or emotional unstable. If the doctors advise everyone to avoid another serious shock, Kadir will have to remain close even though he knows her understanding of their relationships is incorrect. This creates a difficult moral position for him. Deep inside, Kadir may have wanted a future with Daphne. He may have imagined when life could look like it, stop fighting and choose each other. Now he is suddenly placed inside a false version of that future. Daphne treated him with the trust and closeness of a wife, but Kadir knows she has not freely chooses his situations from memory. He cannot allow himself to enjoy it without limits. If the story wants to know Kadir growing emotionally, he should becomes very careful about protecting Daphne chooses during the period. He may decide from the beginning that he will not create false romantic memories. If Daphne asks about their wedding, he may avoid investing beautiful stories. If she asks how long they have been married, he may change the subject or allow someone else to explain carefully. If she expects behavior that would normally happen between a husband and wife, Kadir may create gentle distance. This will confuse Daphne, but it will also show the audience that he understands the difference between what he wants and he has the right to take the family members around them for hours for make the situations much more complicated. Once everyone learns that Daphne believes Kadir is her husband, they must decide how far they should continue the misunderstanding. Some people will think should her immediately, other him worry about the health. The doctor's warning could force them into temporary operations. This create a very funny and tense situations because of group of people who rarely agree or anything now have to help protect the same false story. Daphne may enter Kadir some explaining expecting to evidence to her married life. She expects photographs shared belongings, families, routines, and sign that she has felt there for a long time. Instead, almost everything tells her opposite. Her clothes are there, personal items are missing, the house does not look like it belongs to be a couple. Family members behave strategy every time she asks a simple question. These small problems can become a accident comedy because everyone tries to give explanations, but their explanations do not always match. For example, one person may say wedding says Samal because Daphne will not attempt, and other persons may accidentally speak if no wedding ever happens. Some could quickly remove an old photograph of Kadir and Laila before Daphne noticed it. Uh, some else bring me a few of Daphne belongs from her own new home only for Daphne to wonder her everything looks newly placed. At every attempt to make the false situations appears normal could create another question. Daphne's too intelligence is ignored these details, so the family will constantly feel they are no mistake away from exposing the trust. Selma may become the funniest and most emotionally important part of the time set up. She is unlikely to be happy about Daphne suddenly staying in Kadir home and behaving as if she belongs there. Even if she understands the medical reasons, she may still feel that the entire situation is impossible. She She could look at Daphne as someone entered the family without permission. Daphne, meanwhile, may believe Salma is simply a difficult mother in law. These misunderstandings create a completely new relationship between them. Daphne may think she and Selma an argument before the accident. Because Selma behaved coldly, Daphne may assume their relationship was already difficult. Instead of becoming angry, Daphne might decide to improve it. She could try to help around the house, ask Salma about family traditions, or make an effort to spend time with her. Salma would be completely confused because she know were never actually mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. Yet she may slowly respond to Daphne's effort despite herself. The most interesting change would happen when Selma begins observing how naturally Daphne cares about Kadir. Because Daphne believes the marriage is real, she is no longer is trying to prove that she deserves him. She is not performing for his family. She simply behaves according to what she feels. She asks whether Kadir has eaten. She notices when she is tired. She worries when he leaves unexpectedly. She understands when his mood changes. Those small moments can be affect Selma much more than any direct attempt Daphne made in the past to gain approval. Selma may gradually understand that Daphne love from Kadir genius. She may still complain about everything, but her attitude can become softer. Perhaps she began preparing for Daphne like without admitting why. Perhaps she defends Daphne while Selma makes a comment. Perhaps she tells Kadir not to upset Daphne because he girl is still recovering. Kadir will notice this change and may secretly enjoying seeing his mother's become emotionally attached to someone she originally resisted. The temporary household allow Kadir to see a version of Daphne he has never seen for long before the accident. Daphne was almost always under pressure. She was dealing with work